Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of The Joy of Logistics. And I'm very happy. I'm very happy. I'm excited. I'm thrilled for today's show. Gonna be epic. That's also one thing I was telling you throughout the whole 2 weeks or last 2 weeks over on LinkedIn. But first, in case you're the first time joining us today, and you're thinking, oh, wow, who's this guy? Who's this guy talking about the joy of logistics? So let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Christoph. I've now been in the industry roughly for a decade. And yeah, I love it. I love it since I'm in this industry since the very first day. And reason I'm hosting this Joy of Logistics podcast is basically I discovered a need, or you can also say a lack of information for the whole public, where a lot of players, whether it's suppliers, whether it's customers, and whether it's just your friends or your neighbors living around basically next door. And sometimes when you talk about some challenges, some topics that you encounter in your daily business, they're like, oh, really? Oh, wow, that's what you're doing? Okay, that's pretty impressive. And I thought, hey, I'm pretty sure that there are much more people or many more people out there interested in logistics, maybe also just starting out in the logistics industry, and that are just keen and willing to learn a bit more what's going on. And I also want to make sure I provide the stage for interesting people, interesting companies, and out of the box solutions, and to shine a light on them, because I believe that this is also what is driving the whole global economy, but what is also improving operations and at some point also our daily lives. With that being said, as you've noticed, the description or the title of today's episode is "Let's Go Green: Best Practices for Green Logistics." And I'm sure, and that's whether you're in this industry or not, but I'm sure that you heard a lot media coverage about various things. Whether there's uh, the climate change, of course, on the one hand side, the challenges that are or that are coming with it, but also some pioneering solutions, some ideas that are out there. And I thought, hey, this is really something special. That's really something interesting. Well, everything that is on the joy of logistics is pretty much interesting, of course, but that's something that also has some sense of urgency. And I thought, hey, okay, what am I going to do? Of course, I'm also inviting some experts in that sense, because I'm also loving to learn a lot, and I'm looking forward to that. So, without further ado, I'm very happy to announce my guests for today or tonight, depending where you're listening to it. And it's I'm very pleased to be joined by a company called Loon, and I'm joined by Alicia Carney and Maria Lacalle. Hello, everybody.
Hey
Thank you for
there.
being on the show. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, Christoph.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're welcome, and thank you so much for taking your time and for sharing some of your insights. And I'm sure I can speak for the whole audience here. We are all very excited and very much looking forward to learn a lot. So, quick note to the audience: I hope you have your pen and paper ready. You can also use your smartphone, of course. Um, Maybe we first start off if you would just quickly introduce yourself and quickly introduce Loon as well.
Of course. Okay, I will go first. Okay, I'm Maria Lacalle. I'm basically at Loon. I'm focusing on the expansion and the business development side as an international account executive, focusing specifically on the logistic and supply chain sector. So also logistic fork of Christoph. I have previous experience in the global freight forwarding world and also in the
Mhm.
air transportation industry. What about you, Alicia?
Mhm.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name's Alicia. I have about 10 years of experience in product marketing, but many moons ago, I actually got a degree in sustainable tourism. So while I've been
Mhm.
working in SaaS and technology, B2B software for over a decade, I've had a long-term passion in the fight against climate change and now helping
Mhm.
businesses through Loon to fight climate change and
Mhm.
create better customer experiences and better business outcomes through that. That's my kind of my core passion. And I
Mhm.
completed a sustainability course certificate through Cambridge that I highly recommend. They have an amazing institute if anyone's trying to do some deeper knowledge into
Mhm.
this space beyond our conversation today. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's me.
Excellent, excellent. I highly appreciate it. And again, a warm welcome on the show. Maybe can you also give a quick introduction about Loon as a company and yeah, what is Loon doing?
That's of course. Let's jump on that about Loon. Maybe the first thing that we should do is just share our mission. That's really beautiful. By the way, it's a lovely sentence.
Hmm.
We want to make every product and service climate positive by default. So I know, Christoph, you made a face that seems really challenging, but we will make it happen. That's for sure. Maybe the big question is
Awesome.
how we do it. How we do it. How Loon
Uh-huh.
wants to achieve that goal. Basically, Loon connects logistics and supply chain companies with, on the one hand, carbon emission visibility. So being able to help you calculate the emissions that you are impacting the world with.
Hmm.
And on the other side, we are helping companies offering reliable and high quality offsetting projects. So basically allowing companies to compensate that impact in a positive way.
Hmm.
Again, in a climate positive way. So how do we do it? Also, I think it's relevant to point out that we are also digital folks. We help companies be connected to our powerful API, and that's how we
Hmm.
automate all of the process. And we basically, again, help companies calculate their emissions and better the climate action projects to compensate them. And yeah, we can, of course, along the conversation, we can share you some examples to make it more easy. And I think that would be really meaningful because we will answer the question, what's carbon offsetting? That's for sure. Right, Christoph?
Perfect. Perfect. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much for also this quick introduction. And if you can read my face, by the way you were talking, I already had some light bulbs. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting question. Oh, I got another one over there. So um, I will just start right away, because as you also alluded to, with also based on your API solutions, you help your clients to even calculate their emissions. And you know, as you know, measurements are key. At the end of the day, if you really want to improve, change, adjust, whatever, anything, at one point you need to be able to measure them. And for me, as a total novice in that space on how to calculate all of that, um, and I'm sure many folks in the audience maybe think the same thing, because what you also hear by media coverage, um, somehow, at least to my understanding, there is nothing like a standard formula or something like that. So maybe you can go a little bit into that in terms of how you measure the
Yeah,
emissions or the impact.
that's a good starting point for sure. Alicia, I will jump into that one if that's okay for you. I think you mentioned something that is really relevant. We're talking about measurement. We're talking about
Hmm.
visibility. Maybe I
Hmm.
will start by saying that can be a tool for decision making. So that's why we are really prioritizing that element in our product and value proposition with information, with the KPI, let's say, of the emission impact that a product or a
Hmm.
service has. You can make decisions. So I think that's really
Hmm.
relevant. Also, another maybe context or introductory element I would share is that all of you know that regulation is pressuring, let's say, companies towards emission visibility. They ask you to create a ESG report with the KPIs such as emission visibility. So I think all of this leads into a pretty logical conclusion. So we need to have that visibility because regulation asks for that, and because it can help businesses and companies be strategic and at having all of the relevant information. Now I will answer your question. I think you were saying, how do we do it? I mean, it's true. How can we do it? And I would add, how can we do it in a logistics world that is so complex? I mean, that's
right.
We know it.
We know
it.
Right.
It's complex. We talk about transportation. We talk about supply chain. We talk about providers. We talk about many elements. So maybe to answer your question, I will first say that lucky for us, there is a really relevant, let's say, framework. It's the GLEC framework, GLEC. That has been built by the Smart Freight Center, and it allows us to have let's say a basis scenario to know how to calculate the emissions in our environment, in the logistic environment. So that's a very good starting point. It's a methodology that it's also auditing companies that develop this system, this methodology, like us, like Loon. So we are GLEC certified, and I think maybe what I will do now is explain you the three main data points that we need in a logistics world, let's say, so that you can take out for instance, from a transport, understand what's the emission linked to that, okay? So basically, as a minimum, you required distance. So of course, if we're talking about trains, trucks, air transport, shipping lines, all of this, we need the distance. That's fairly logical. But we also need the cargo weight, because of course it's not the same 1 TU than 4 TUs, and it's not the same if they have a weight that is nearly at the maximum level or at a minimum level. So that's 2 points: distance, cargo weight, and maybe the last key element would be, of course, the mode of transport. I was talking about air transportation or trucking. And also we can narrow that down, because if we only talk about trucking, there are many kinds of road transportation, diesel, electric cars, all of that can be really narrowed down. Just to give you an example, Christoph, at Loon we have more than 100 different types of transportation, because we narrowed that down so much to have a granular calculation. Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
That's crazy.
So yeah, so maybe just to finalize this overall element of measurement, I would say that it's really important for us, for the company providers that help companies take out these calculations. It's very important to challenge ourselves. We really try to go to go above and beyond, to really be very granular about the calculations, and to add more elements that the ones I've mentioned. Of course, distance, cargo weight, and mode of transport is essential, but we need to go above and beyond, and to try to be really specific. That's very important. And maybe linking to my first point, when I was giving you a little bit of context, I think, and I can say that because I was working at a freight forwarder, my clients, when they wanted to order a shipment, they would ask me, Maria, what's the option that is the less expensive, and what's the option that is the fastest? So they were only considering 2 criteria. So why are we not considering also the greener? So that's kind of our statement. That's what we believe should be done in the sector.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, knowledge is power here. And we're talking if someone takes some insight away from this session right now, it's what can I do? Something tactical is create more visibility. And that's really powerful, because making greener decisions doesn't need to be expensive, and it doesn't need to be difficult. And that's one of our messages. And that's why we're so excited about the opportunity for logistics customers is that this doesn't have to be painful. It could be very easy, and sometimes setting up the opportunity to learn about greener options is one of the most effective ways of creating climate action.
Yeah, and maybe
Really?
Alicia, you made me think of something that I think Christoph will appreciate to know a little bit of the global numbers, right?
Oh
Let's
yeah.
say, I don't think, Christoph, you know what's the right now the international trade, freight, transportation impact in emissions. Do you know what's the percentage right now? Okay, do you want to guess?
On a global scale?
On a global scale. On a global scale. What do you think?
On a
Of
global
freight.
scale, I will guess, on a global level, I would say 68%.
Woo! That was okay. Lucky for us, we are not at that level. we are greener than Christoph thinks.
Yes, it's good. It's good in this sense. That's good.
But basically, think that we are talking about compared to all of the other sectors, compared to like globally, the impact of the world of logistics, of the world of specifically of transportation, of freight transportation, that's 7%. But the issue is that the estimations are that if we project ourselves in 2050 and we do nothing, we might reach like 30% or above. So that's the real issue. Like all of the sectors, apart from logistics, they are working towards greener solutions. And if we don't follow, then we will, we will increase our piece of the pie, let's say.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. You were surprised, right?
Yeah.
I'm really glad we're not.
Bit.
I'm glad we're not in the 60 percentile range because we wouldn't be here right now.
True. Yeah. True. No, but jokes aside, no, indeed, some very interesting points that both of you were mentioning, and also what I really love to point out is what Alicia was saying, that it doesn't have to be painful and it doesn't have to be expensive. It's also interesting to hear, and this is also going back to the example that Maria was giving us, the visibility, and also the understanding in the first place, I believe, because you can't change anything if you're not aware of it. And Maria, you're absolutely right. And still up to the very day, most of my clients are also asking the same, hey, can I get a price? I want for the fastest, and second, I want the cheapest. And if it takes, I don't know, 8 weeks, okay, doesn't matter. I'm fine with that. But no one is actually talking about green transportation, whatever that means, right? But and I'm confident, and in fact, I'm convinced that this will change over the years, because you also read a lot about, like bigger players that are also committing themselves, like Electrolux does, for instance, with CMA CGM to transport all the cargo on a, I believe it was LNG basis, if I'm not wrong. Which will also help them to save some CO2. And I also believe that many people out there, whether they're actually working in the freight industry or whether they are utilizing logistics, meaning they are importer, exporter, maybe just a wholesaler, whatever, I'm quite sure that many of them just don't know where to start. Right? Because there is, at least based on my understanding, there is just no guideline like, okay, you're starting here, you have shipments, for instance. Okay. And then there is nothing, a big gray box. And then there is net zero or green or however you want to call it. Right. So with that being said, and that's also something that Maria alluded to in the beginning, is carbon offsetting. So I'm sure that many people listening to us, they're like, okay, I have no idea what carbon offsetting is. I mean, what would you tell them? What would you tell them?
I mean, look, we have put hundreds of billions of tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. And despite making great progress in some areas, we're still deforesting at an unprecedented pace. which is scary, but that means that the reality is CO2 needs to be removed from the atmosphere in tandem with decarbonization plans, and nature needs protecting. So carbon offsetting at its core is compensating for those carbon emissions by funding or financing the projects that are making an equivalent reduction in removing carbon emissions. So it's trying to undo damage done while we're effectively rebuilding a decarbonized world, which is exciting and daunting. But what we want to share today, our message is that there's so much to be excited about. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but like there's incredible technologies that we can access today. But they all boil down to a unit of a carbon credit. So one carbon credit is equal to 1 ton of CO2. And 1 ton of CO2 is kind of the like driving, what is it, Maria? Driving between 2,500 miles. Apologies for my North American bias. The distance between like Boston, Massachusetts and Salt Lake City. Is that right, Maria?
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. So carbon credits are something that businesses can purchase to finance projects that are reducing or removing carbon emissions equivalent to what they're generating. And a little bit of background here and how we're talking about the voluntary carbon markets. The background is that there are some carbon credits that come from the mandatory markets where it was a compliance measure. And those are mostly engaged with industries that are notoriously high polluting. But now, over the past few decades, there's been, more focus from a private business lens on purchasing on the voluntary carbon markets. And that's how every business on the planet can work to make the world a better place and work to protect nature and remove carbon from the atmosphere. So that's what we're in the business of, is connecting businesses to the really, really great quality projects on the voluntary carbon markets. Yeah, does that make sense? It can get a little. We're trying to keep it high level because it can get quite complex. But is that clear?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. It makes sense to me. Quick question here, though. You were talking about voluntarily carbon markets. Is there also something like an opposite, like a forced market or
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Maria.
No, I mean, that's precisely it. Like, there are some industries that are obliged by law or by compliance rules to, let's say, like to compensate the over emissions that they are emitting, because like at the end, maybe I'm imagining in my head, like this typical, industries where there's a lot of smoke and so on and so forth. So basically, yes, some sectors, some companies are obliged by the regulation, but indeed, as Alicia was saying, like the beauty of our industry is that right now, like, companies do it voluntarily, and they do it because they are also conscious that even if maybe they don't like pass the regulatory limits, they are still like emitting a lot, and they are still we all need to work together, and companies that in fact companies that do it will be will have a competitive advantage in a way, if you want to see it that way in a business side. And if you want to see it in an emotional side, it's beautiful to say that you're doing it just to contribute to saving the world, let's say.
I like that. Yeah, makes absolutely sense. Absolutely. Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. And I just want to bring in a question from the audience that just popped up. Tim, I hope I pronounced his name correct. Chow. Could the decrease in demand for ocean and air transportation, but an increase in trucking transportation, help reduce emissions in the future on a global scale?
Okay, that's a good point. I mean, at the end, I think it leads Christoph to a really, really big conversation we're talking about globalization, how things may change.
Mm-hmm.
We all hear about that. In fact, there are a lot of posts recently from the CEO of Scheithe, you probably know him, that was addressing,
Mm-hmm.
this kind of contextual topic. But if we focus
Mm-hmm.
on, I'm not going to enter if it's going to happen, our companies
Sure.
going to, regionalize their supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that. I don't have the crystal ball, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe you have, Christoph. Maybe you have,
No,
but
I'm just a simple logistics guy. I'm not a magician, Maria.
but entering in the emission side, that's
Mhm.
a relevant point. Specifically, if we analyze the air transportation, it's true that air
Mhm.
transportation is generally perceived as the bigger emitter in the transportation world.
Mhm. Mhm.
But and trucking, specifically, if you choose trucking that is more green, like electric cars or trucks, or all of the
Mhm. Mhm.
new hydrogen and all of this trendy stuff that is going on, that can help optimize. But
Mhm.
here, this question is more linked to optimization. You as a company, you need to
Mhm.
decide what you need, and to be honest, it's complicated to enter in such a strategic element of a company. Like, I think of IKEA as a shipper. They have a
Mhm.
huge supply chain, crazy, crazy,
Right.
crazy. It's very complicated. Like of course they will choose ocean transportation because it's cheaper, especially now.
Mhm.
But they also need
Right.
air
Yeah.
transportation because it's faster, and they really need it because they need to offer like the stock that is available for the
Mhm.
clients really really fast. But they
Mhm.
also surely have some kind of supply chain system that is really regionally oriented, so they need trucking. So I would say, I would turn around the question and just say all of these transportation modes need to optimize and need to work towards this green, let's say, strategy. All of them do it. We all hear about SAF. We all hear about
Mhm.
all of the amazing discoveries in the ocean trade. You talked about CMS, GM, about trucking. There are many examples. I mean, we can talk about this for a long time, I would say.
Right, right. I agree. Yeah, there's a lot going on, especially what you just alluded to, Maria. Methanol, green ammonia. There is something really big planned down in the Suez or close to the Suez Canal for big ocean freight vessels. But based on what you were saying in essence, Maria, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but
Yeah,
what you were saying in essence, no matter the shift, also with things like reshoring, nearshoring, we just leave that out of the equation. But
yeah,
nevertheless, in fact, if we optimize each little step in a big supply chain, the combination of each and everything and each and every little step in there turns out to something great, something green,
yeah,
something fantastic
yeah.
for the future, right?
Completely. That's completely it. I mean, at the end, maybe what I was trying to avoid is to say, don't do this transportation because it's damaging. I would never do that, because
Hmm.
to me, I mean, it doesn't make sense, to be honest. Uh,
Right.
because all of the industry, all of the transportation modes are doing their best to improve and to go towards green, the green sector, and specifically air transport. They are doing that, and if you choose
Hmm.
air transport, it's because you are, you want a fast transit time. So maybe, like, indeed, that you said it completely right, and but maybe I wanted to add this, that I think it's important to, just to think of what's the right mode of transport for my company,
Right.
what's
Right.
the right
Yeah.
supply chain, and to consider the right partner, that will help us as a company, choose a greener solution. I think that's kind
Hmm.
of how I would see it.
Hmm.
I don't know,
Hmm.
Alicia, do you agree?
Yeah, I think you were much more articulate than I was gonna be. My answer was gonna be, "It kinda depends," but you said that in a much more, articulate way.
I said it depends, but in a longer way.
Yeah, yeah, but, no, I know
No,
that's yeah, go ahead.
No. Alicia, go ahead.
I was going
Didn't
to
mean
say,
to
if you want
interrupt
to
you.
reach out and talk to our team about that, we're happy to like discuss in more detail, what we think after the podcast.
Sounds
And maybe
great. Sounds
Alicia,
great. And we will.
sorry. Oh, I think we're
No,
cutting
no.
each other.
I was just going to say we will go into the contact stuff, like contact details, etc., at the end of the
Perfect.
podcast. So
Yeah.
yeah, that everybody is aware. We're not going to leave that out of the talk, so to speak.
Nice.
For sure. Maybe Christoph, I wanted just to remind the audience that what we said at the beginning, with the information, the information can lead you to have a new decision criteria. So basically, by monitoring the emissions, you can see, okay, I see that air transport is more expensive than a sea trade, but and it's faster, but it's of course more polluting. So maybe I will, for this specific import, I will choose, to use MSC for an sea trade import. But maybe in another case that it's an export, maybe you really need to go fast. So in that case, you decide to export through an air shipment with Air France, and maybe in that case, you just to compensate the over emission, you can always use what Alicia was talking about, carbon offsetting, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot. That's how we got here.
Right. Yeah. This was the initial starting point, and maybe just also from that also comes to my mind. And by the way, again, Tim, thank you for asking the question. Highly appreciate it. But I think we also have to, and Maria already alluded to that, but I do also think that we have to get one myth out of the room, I believe, because there are some people out there and companies think like, okay, yeah, we can just ban or get rid of air freight, for instance. Yeah, just because of exactly what you alluded to, simply because it's polluting that much. And as you already alluded to, you as a company, you have to have the visibility to dig in, to analyze your processes. Is it needed or not? It doesn't make sense. Also from my perspective, and now I'm talking also about my day-to-day experiences, to say, okay, yeah, we just ban it. Okay, but what about medicines or something like that, which is needed now at some other point at literally the other side of the world, where ocean freight just doesn't make any sense. I mean, we got to be realistic when we're talking
Yeah.
about things like that, because this happens each and every day, and we also need a solution for that, not
Yeah.
not just something that is just sounds nice, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
And that's another reason why it's going to take everyone, that we need every business to prioritize these solutions now, because it is so complex and interdependent. And so what we want to highlight are the other benefits beyond accelerating decarbonization and building more sustainable logistics, but like the benefits of that and what that looks like. So, yeah.
Right. And maybe to circle back to the initial question that got us here, we were talking about, or you were talking about and referring to carbon offsetting.
Yeah.
What is this really? And maybe can you, or other way around, is there just one way to carbon offset, or are there also different types, different models, different modules? Maybe you can
Yeah.
go into that.
Yeah, certainly. So there's many different types beyond tree planting, which is the general assumption of what that means. But there's two big ways that you can group carbon offsets, and that would be into avoided emissions or carbon removed. Avoiding emissions it results in future emissions being avoided or reduced. So an example of that could be renewable energy projects. So let's say a new solar farm is built close to an urban city that's currently powered by fossil fuels. So that results in future carbon emissions being reduced because you're changing that energy source. So that's avoided emissions. And then the second big group is carbon removal, one that I get quite excited about. But
Go ahead.
and it's hard to contain it, so you'll see. But carbon removal physically removes existing carbon from the atmosphere. So an example of that could be reforestation, where if you think about like a tree, as they grow, they absorb and store carbon. So planting forests increases the carbon removed from the atmosphere by trees. But there are, across these two categories, avoided emissions and carbon removal, there's really exciting technology that, Christoph, we talked about in our initial chat a few weeks ago.
Right.
That,
Right.
you'd think, as Maria and I now work in climate change and climate tech, that it would get increasingly scary, working in the space and learning more. But it gets more and more exciting because you see how many cool, innovative, cutting edge technologies exist today. And the problem is just scaling them. And so an example of that could be direct air capture, which would be carbon removal. And those are big.
Alicia, you need to show a picture,
Okay.
because I don't think it's imaginable. It's so beautiful as a project, but it's hard. Yeah, right.
You might have heard of them. Let me see if I could just share my screen very briefly. Share screen. Entire screen. Can you see this?
1 second. I'm gonna.
Oh,
yes, there we are.
Yes. This is a direct air capture plant. And this is using a chemical process to permanently suck carbon out of the atmosphere and store it.
Wow.
And it's huge. You can see right here, those are 2 people. So the physical scale of this is huge. Let me just see if I can be smooth in stopping to share my screen without the vortex. There we go.
Yeah.
So
too many
sorry.
Too many Maria, Alicias, and Christoph there.
I know, it's like the perpetual mirrors. But yeah, and there are really cool, innovative technologies in the avoided emission space as well. But we need these technologies to be more common knowledge and to be as synonymous as tree planting is when we think about carbon offsets, because these technologies are here and they are all over the world, and it's just a matter of scaling them up. And that's the role that logistics can play in scaling those technologies, is contributing to them with every leg of a journey.
Yeah, maybe Christoph. I like, also when I joined the industry at the beginning, I was like, whoa, this terminology to differentiate avoided emissions from carbon removal is quite. At the beginning, it might seem a little bit odd if you don't know it from the past. I'm also with the logistic background. I didn't have that beauty situation. So maybe what helped me understand the difference, just to build on what Alicia was saying.
Yeah.
We were talking about carbon offsetting, right? Carbon offsetting. If we are a numerical person, you can think that 1 credit of carbon offsetting is 1 ton of CO2. So basically, how I understood this differentiation of typologies is that avoided emissions through the project that Alicia was evoking, this 1 ton was never really created because we have avoided that through, for instance, the renewable energy or many other projects. And maybe carbon removal, as Alicia showed perfectly with this example that is so visual, like this 1 ton has been like removed from the atmosphere. So maybe did that help you?
It does absolutely, and especially also with that picture in mind, because I'll be honest, I haven't seen that prior to that. I mean, I've never seen something like. Of course, I've heard about it in the news. Yeah, there is some sort of CO2 capturing. Okay, granted, but I had no picture about that in my mind, let alone that it is actually that huge with those little people standing on top of that, and it's crazy. And I would also add what Alicia was also referring to. It's not that, or in my opinion, I would even go one step further, that logistics, especially the global aspect of it, ocean freight, air freight, etc., not only could become or play a part in the whole debate or the whole evolution of more sustainability across the globe, but it has to. It is a
Yes.
vital point. It is a vital part affecting each and everybody, no matter where you're living, no matter what you're consuming or whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, whether it's the fruit coming from overseas, whether it's I just circled back to Maria's IKEA example, but it holds true. Whether it's your car, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it really affects each and everybody. So it, in my opinion, it really does make sense if logistics as a industry is stepping up the game,
Yeah.
where it is possible, and especially what you alluded to and what you've shown us so far, it is possible. It is possible. So I would also venture on in terms of the conversation, in terms of the quality, the um, quality of projects that are done, because obviously, and I believe this has, or this number has increased more, where projects are reported, no matter whether they're in Europe or in the US, doesn't matter. But where like, okay, yeah, sounds like a nice initiative,
Hmm.
and after a few time or after a certain period of time, it turns out to be something where you're like, okay, yeah, isn't that more greenwashing, or at least it's questionable? So I wouldn't be surprised if there are some people thinking like, okay, yeah, that's just, yeah, it's just a nice sticker on it, and looking good. So is there something about um, quality when it comes down to those projects? Is there, maybe you have a top three criteria or something where like, okay, if this and this is matched, other than distance, visibility, and but if on the project itself, do you have some criteria where like, okay, go through that checklist and then it's something you can actually pursue with a good feeling, or you just step away and obviously talk to the professionals, Alicia or Maria?
Yeah, I can kick us off on the quality conversation. There's tons of challenges with the voluntary carbon market, so we spend a lot of time across our team analyzing these
Mhm.
projects. We actually start by working with some external project evaluation providers. Have you heard of Vera or Gold Standard,
I've
Christoph?
heard about gold standard.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Nice. It's also the name of my protein powder. So whenever I see that, I'm always like,
Oh,
have they pivoted their
that's
business?
easy.
Um, so they are kind of private entities that are working to create an assessment of quality. So that's our starting point, similar to kind of GLEC framework or SMART
Mhm.
for emissions calculations. We go to third party um, independent bodies to see what they think, and then
Mhm.
we use our own kind of five-ish type of criteria, and we try to pass on that information to our customers so that we're saying, here's what we took into consideration, and so on. But before we get into those criteria, I think it's also really important to note that like not being certified does not mean it's a bad project. So direct air capture, for example, that we've been talking about, that we just showed,
Mhm.
we use
Mhm.
a project developer called 1.5, and it's an incredible innovative technology. They're on the frontier. They're leading the space, and they're not certified. And it's just because they're brand new, and
Mhm.
they're still working to scale up. And so, just because you see a project that's not certified, don't immediately equate that with risk. It's not. Sometimes they're some of the most exciting technologies that just haven't or earlier in their stage. Um, so yeah, there's kind of 5 key criteria that we look for when we're assessing project quality. And the
Mhm.
first would be durability. And we're going to try and keep this as high level as possible, but if anything doesn't make sense, just interrupt me. So durability is how long lasting will the carbon benefit be um,
Mhm.
that's produced by a product. So there's kind of short, medium, and long term durability. Um,
Yeah. Uh, maybe it's. I was thinking, Alicia. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
Well,
no.
you said that we can, so I will do it.
There you go.
I think that's precisely a perfect, like, let's say, equivalent of what we were talking earlier. We were showing some carbon removal examples, talking about forestry and direct air capture. Precisely, forestry is the perfect example of like a short or mid-term, let's say, kind of duration. So of course, because at the end the tree will probably end up dying, or might, so that will affect the durability of the carbon removal. But on the other side, projects like direct air capture are like long term or even like permanent. So I think, that's
High
I'm a
durability.
really visual person, so I thought it was a good example.
Yeah. So durability is how long lasting these benefits are. So that's a really important criteria that we take into consideration when we're assessing adding a project to the Loon dashboard. We actually filter out about 90% of projects that we evaluate. I know it's been hardcore because we want our customers to feel confident and proud of the project that they're supporting. And with a million different scary headlines, we want to just focus on the projects that are having an impact, and here's why, and giving you that information as transparently as possible. So durability is a good one. Additionality is, does the project result in a carbon benefit beyond what you could say business as usual, if it hadn't existed? So if not, if there's no impact, then that carbon credit is kind of useless. So if the tree would have grown naturally in that ecosystem anyway, that's not what we're going for. We're going for definitive net new impact because the project exists. Does that one make sense?
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
Nice.
Especially the example with the tree, and also combined with what Maria was alluding to, tree versus permanent capture. Um, because I'm also a visual person, that those images that
Yeah.
really helps them. Yeah, just put things into perspective,
Yeah.
to be on the same page and understand that.
Yeah, and again, like,
Perfect.
not they're not, one is not better than the other. They're just different approaches and different methodology or different technologies. Um,
Mhm.
then we have measurement. And that
Mhm.
is all about how confident we are that a project has accurately estimated and quantified their impact. How accurate is this? And I'm sure that's pretty straightforward to most logistics people in a world of trying to control accuracy as much as possible. But we want
Right.
to know with confidence the amount of emissions that they avoid or the carbon that they remove. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
And you
then,
made a good point about logistics. That's completely true.
yeah, I'm
Accuracy
learning.
is relevant.
The more I learn about the logistics space, the more my head just explodes. It's so huge and complex and quite exciting. Cool challenges. So then there's two more. The fourth is risk mitigation, and that, like, every carbon project on the planet has risks. Even the cool direct air capture that I'm obsessed with, there's always risks in everything. So it's all about mitigating and reducing those risks and being open about what they are. Um,
Mhm.
and that'll differ based on different project methodology, but we're looking for robust risk mitigations in place, so that there's a bit of a fallback plan, or we want to know that this has been considered. And lastly, one that I get really, really excited about is kind of this, we think about, sorry, it's co-benefits. And we think about that as almost an intersectional understanding of sustainability. So what has the project delivered beyond benefits with carbon? Are there jobs created? Are women given more access to autonomy and independence and careers?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Financial equity and helping other people move up the ladder and have a chance at success. Restoring habitats and biodiversity. These are all incredibly important factors that affect climate change. Um,
Mhm.
So, and we will assess projects based on their co-benefits. And similar to all the other 5 criteria, or 4 other criteria, we're now surfacing in the Loon dashboard on every single project page. We're telling our customers, these are the co-benefits. Here's their risk mitigation plan. Here's how durable this is.
Yeah.
So we're passing on that along with like ongoing news and updates from project developers to our customers, because that's where the confidence in carbon projects comes from. It's getting rid of this kind of like opaque wall between you and the project and helping you understand what's actually happening, what's the real impact here.
Yeah, and maybe I think just to be sure that our audience is not like kind of being, afraid, like those are a lot of criterias, and they need to be like that. I believe that's the right way to see quality, as Christoph was asking earlier. Like we need to be to challenge ourselves and to try to find the projects that follow those criteria, and even more criteria if possible. But maybe my nice comment is that we do. I mean, there are, and we offer to our clients projects that follow all of those criteria in a really good and professional ways that are not that expensive. Because I was thinking maybe people have this fear of, kind of price sensitivity, and maybe just Christoph, to give you an idea, there are really, really good projects that cost more or less $20 to $30 per ton of CO2, and that's way below the average price of the market. So I think that's something good, that there are those options for people that are more price sensitive. And maybe, I would just add that I think the challenge of transparency is very big in the sector, but it's very, very important to to find ways to overcome that challenge, as Alicia was saying. That's a good topic.
Absolutely. And to me, speaking for me personally, it's interesting to see that, at least talking about the solution that you were just going through, especially with the co-benefits, it's interesting to see that it's not just a mere, let's say, like a CO2 certificate trading market where, like, okay, I got some certificates left over, who's buying, I don't know, $50 per share or whatever the number might be, or other way around. Oh, shoot, I have exceeded my target or my level, I need to obtain more. But it's actually, if I understand those projects correctly, it's actually, well, it's more than just tackling the CO2 topic, especially with those co-benefits. It's really creating something sustainable. And I don't mean that necessarily only limited to the climate, but also to people, like Alicia was alluding to, offering jobs, for instance, etc. And maybe a question on that is, do you have some how can I put this, like a geographical focus? Like, is this, for instance, in Europe or in Western countries, or could this also be Africa or Asia, whatever?
That's a really good question. So I did a bit of research recently where I analyzed about 5,500 companies who've made definitive climate commitments to find out where they are, who they are. And by the way, logistics is a huge, in the top 3 industries of companies with climate commitments.
Alicia, how many companies did you analyze?
5,500? Okay. Is that a weird way of saying that? Is that an American?
No. I just want to emphasize like the huge analysis.
Oh, I thought I said something oddly American. Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, no, it was actually really, really fun. I got to use some pivot tables, but I found that over half of businesses with concrete climate commitments, and that could mean their SBTI commitments, they're trying to be a B Corp, they're going for net zero. These are all different kind of frameworks to follow to achieve sustainable success. And over half of those businesses were in Europe. And then Asia Pacific and the Middle East and North America each accounted for 20%. So I was really surprised. Europe seems to be huge, but those numbers could change. We're seeing huge growth year over year and different kind of developments. So I think let's reconnect next year and see how that changes. But yeah, it's certainly a
Sounds good.
global movement, but Europe seems to be winning with about 54% of representation of businesses with climate commitments.
Yeah. Huge. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Definitely is. I mean, that's. I wouldn't have thought that. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It really is.
And
It
actually,
really is.
we're finding some of our customers, or when they're prospects, they'll come to us not necessarily looking for something that gets them closer to those climate commitments, or even looking for a particular carbon technology. They're looking for human benefits. So we had a prospect recently come to our office, and they were looking for projects that benefit people. They had a founder who was really involved with helping people who are homeless in the United Kingdom. And so he wanted his fintech business, or maybe even a payments banking business, to power projects that benefited people that need help socially. So these things are all interconnected. And that's why we think it's really exciting to broaden our definition of carbon offsets beyond tree planting, because we can think much more creatively and innovatively, if that's a word, about what that means and what that could be for the world.
It is, and it definitely makes sense. And quick question here also, like your projects, you just referred to one of your clients or potentials approaching you for a human project in the UK, although it sounds a bit strange if I pronounce it that way, but I think you get the idea. Are your projects focused on a specific geographic area, or could be, let's just say someone or a company from South Korea is approaching you, hey, we want to do something in, I don't know,
Yeah.
Malaysia or in Togo,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that also something that you could work out?
That's a really good question. Geographically, I would say we are worldwide. We have projects. We support projects that are all around the world in all of the continents. But maybe,
Mhm,
I mean, the most important thing is that first to to be to be accepted, let's say, in that way, as
mhm.
part of our project portfolio, the project needs to pass all of the criteria we were talking about, and
Sure.
to be
Yeah.
considered by us as meaningful, as quality oriented. So that's like the first thing that we will consider. And of course, the geography is relevant because, as you were suggesting, of course, a company, and if we talk about logistics, maybe it's a German company that the supply chain of this company might be global, might be regional. So maybe they want to have different solutions, different geographies, different projects. And maybe if we think about reforestation, we have projects, of course, in Brazil, in North America, in Asia, also in Europe. So I think it's very relevant to offer to the client the possibility to choose among different geographies. Also considering that they might have some reasons to support a project in Asia, because maybe they are importing from them because they have their fabric there, and they really want to have an impact in that geography. So yes, of course, we try to offer a spread of projects around the globe, but we, as we like to say, we prioritize quality over quantity. We don't want to have in our portfolio of accepted projects, let's say, like a list of 2,000 projects. That's not us. We focus on less than 50 more or less projects. No, Alicia, I would say 50 would be like a maximum, but maybe we have like 30. That way we help our customers choose between less projects that are really diversified between nature-based and technology-based, like different solutions in different geographies. And if a client wants really something specific, we do our best to try to find that. That's for sure.
Mhm.
But of course, if by if we are unlucky and in that particular country there's no project that passes our quality assessment,
Mhm.
then that
Mhm.
will be our limit. Like if that project that is quality enough doesn't exist in X country, we will not support it. That's for sure.
Mhm.
But we
Mhm.
will try to find it.
One of the most
Spirit
recent
is there.
projects that we've added to the platform is really popular. It's called Delta Blue Carbon. It's based out of
Yeah.
Pakistan. And it's about mangrove restoration. There's so much to learn. It's really, really exciting. um,
Wow, wouldn't have
yeah.
thought that.
So
Oh my goodness.
I
Me
know
neither. Me neither.
mangroves are really important in the fight against climate change because they
Mhm.
sequester like 4 times more carbon than rainforests. Today we learn. Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a really popular project that we have that will help you to support the development of the mangrove ecosystem. But that
Mhm.
project, for example, one of the co-benefits is it also created 10,000 new job opportunities.
Yeah.
So it's like win-win. You don't have to choose between these, more human social benefits and carbon sometimes. It's quite incredible. So,
And I
yeah.
think Christoph
That's
is thinking about, having a new pet in his house.
Well, mangrove. Oh,
a mangrove. Yeah.
no, there's yeah, I don't know what that animal is. I think it might be like a dolphin, but there's some creepy animal in the photography of our project that's
Yeah.
on the dashboard, and it always scares Maria. She's
Okay, no, I don't want it. Okay, no,
no,
Maria,
no,
you can keep that. That's fine.
nah,
That's fine.
we don't want it.
But
Yeah.
but jokes aside, but I'm really impressed, and I'm also highly impressed how can I put this? How one so or no, other way around. How focusing on one object in that sense, carbon offsetting,
Mm,
actually like really doing not some greenwashing, not some blah 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 blah, but really something sustainable, something tangible, even if you
yeah,
want it that way. How this alone wouldn't just benefit logistics companies or
right.
importers, whoever is looking for that, right? Doesn't matter,
Hmm.
as long as it is done. And in fact, I would also argue the more engagement there is, the better it is. But how this actually helps people as a co-benefit with, as you
Yeah.
alluded to, creating more jobs, not just on the tech side, but also landscaping, etc. um it's mind-blowing. It's, to me, it is fascinating. It
Yeah.
really is. And I also see a nice comment here that I wanted to share from our kind audience. I hope, yeah, there we go. Mohammed Faisal Abdul Salim is writing amazing projects, and I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more
We
because
know each other. Hi.
Oh, cool.
okay,
Yeah.
that's, yeah, perfect. No, but he's right. He's right. I mean, and those are the topics. Those are the projects. At least speaking for myself, I haven't heard
Yeah.
anywhere like
Yeah.
really covered in broad media. But I believe that this is something much more companies, much more people need to be aware of. That those projects, as Alicia was alluding to earlier, are all already there. That's not
Right.
something somebody has, like a wild fantasy in their dreams and like Garden Eden and all that. No, it is there. It is
Yeah.
available. It is accessible. And also, based on what Maria was saying earlier, it's just $20 a ton, more or less, plus minus, doesn't matter.
Not
But
all
it's
the projects,
meaning,
but it can be.
yeah, no, no, no,
There
that,
are.
no, that's okay. That's okay. But the point I want to drive home here is, it's not some crazy expensive number where, like, okay, you need to spend $2 million on a ton or something like that. It's something that can be calculated with. It's something that can be budgeted with. It's not
Yeah.
something where everybody's like, okay, oh, I need to, maybe get rid of that supplier because project XYZ or the offsetting is killing it. That's not the case. That's
Yeah.
not the case based on
It,
what you were just sharing.
it complements, right? It can be a complementary strategy
Yeah.
in a way, like when you, and again, allow companies to choose and to decide.
Hmm.
Maybe like something that we have not really talked about deeply up until now is that a lot of companies, a lot of companies, in fact, are claiming that they want to be net zero by X date, some
Mm.
by
Hmm.
2050,
Hmm.
some earlier. And that's, again, a competitive advantage element that companies are using. Some are saying, I will be net zero by 2035. And that's much, much
Hmm.
earlier than the commitment, let's say, of others.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I would say, like that's big companies that claim that they want to be net zero. That doesn't mean that they need just to change completely their strategy. Maybe some elements of the strategy make a lot of sense, and they have already invested a lot in their supply chain in some elements
Hmm.
that they cannot really
Hmm.
change. But at the end,
Hmm.
what I would recommend companies, and I think it's the right way to do it, and a lot of our customers are following that path, is again, like, first, understand the impact of the emissions that your supply chain
Hmm.
follows or has. Second,
Hmm.
try to find way to optimize, and specifically try to optimize where there's more emissions, where there's more
Hmm.
impact. Try to
Hmm.
improve your impact in a way or another. Like, I don't know, like maybe buy electric fleet instead of using a diesel one. I mean, there are many, many ways that you can do it internally in your
Right.
own supply chain. And third, to reach net zero, you need to offset, because there's no business, or at least I cannot think of one, that has zero emissions, or that can optimize in a way that you lead to zero emissions, without any impact on your own, production of your product, or on your own transportation in logistics.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
this kind of reflection is really important. And a lot of companies, as you mentioned, Christoph, don't even, or people don't even know what's offsetting. So that's an issue, because maybe they are
Right.
saying to the public, we want to reach net zero, but they are already in a really early stage on the company, and that's fine. All companies have their own climate journey, and we need to respect that and understand that. But maybe something that we always talk about with Alicia and with the team is that our role is to help educate and to help people understand better, like, at the end, accompany them in this climate journey that we talk about.
Mm.
Yeah.
Correct. Basically take them by the hand. And actually, this could have been a statement that I would say, because this is in fact exactly why you're on this episode today. Because it's also for me that I want to create a stage on that, uh, and a stage for that, for exactly what you're doing, for the commitment and for the engagement that you put out there, for those 5,500 projects that Alicia was going through. Because, as I said, I'm convinced that many people, many companies, whether as an individual or as a commercial person, so to speak, know about it. I did not before, and I'm really amazed by what is possible for, as I say, or as I said, comparatively slow, not slow, small money. You
Yeah.
know, um, that's so important. This is so vital that those are all options that are out there. And in fact, I also appreciate your philosophy behind those projects. Meaning, you focus on the few, not the many. You focus on the quality, not something that just sounds nice, but actually
Mm.
something that really helps, that can be positively utilized and implemented.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
chapeau,
Realistic.
real
I have a question
realistic.
for you, Christoph. I have to turn the
Go ahead.
tables back on you.
Yeah,
As
go
a
ahead.
as a logistics expert, what do you think, how do you think we could elevate awareness of these projects in the industry? What could be done to speed that up? That's a big question. I'm asking how
That's
can I do my job better?
that's really great question, Alicia. I appreciate that. I mean, number one, and this somehow goes also back to what Maria was saying: awareness and visibility.
Yeah.
the information has to be out there, has to be made available, accessible.
Right.
Hence, that's why we're together today, because this is part of the mission that I want to,
Yes.
contribute to and work with. Spread the idea, spread the word, getting to know people. And number one, oh well, that's a big part. Also, word of mouth, obviously, sure.
Yeah.
Um, that's a big one, and I think a second big point is also for both people and companies to allow themselves to immerse into this topic,
Yeah.
because what we also were talking about earlier, there is much going on in terms of greenwashing here and the scandal over there, and something has been, where it should have been invested in some sort of sustainable or green project, whatever that might be,
Mhm.
but it turned out to be, I don't know, a bonus for a C-level manager or something
Right.
like that. And
Yeah.
I do believe that this, or that incidents as such, erode the trust of people into those commitments to a certain
Mhm.
degree. And I think that this is a difficult challenge, and I don't really know how to tackle that. But other than that, I think spreading the word is important, awareness is important. Um, maybe, hmm,
Yeah.
good
Well,
question.
that
Maybe.
that is a perfect segue into another point that we wanted to raise, which is the importance of getting these types of projects and carbon offsets out of your website footer sustainability report and into your customer experience. And so that's part of the
Hmm.
strategic opportunity that's available to logistics companies today. It's not just making this one-off purchase of carbon credits to support direct air capture,
Hmm.
although that's huge, but it's about how do I make sure I'm embedding sustainability into my business and capturing those business
Hmm.
benefits and making this part of who we are. And that's the real challenge, actually, because from there,
Hmm.
awareness and word of mouth flows organically. So,
Mhm.
what
Hmm.
we need are senior leaders and those who are responsible for big decision making to
Hmm.
bring sustainability into team culture, into training sessions, into the sales narrative,
Hmm.
into marketing campaigns. And how do we do that? By telling real stories about what's actually happening with these projects. So, to bring it back to Loon for a second, we give 100% visibility into
Hmm.
ongoing updates. What's happening with this project? What has the mangrove people, what have they actually done this week? So that you don't have
Hmm.
to, as a business, give huge, lofty messaging about we're going to do this and we're aiming to do that.
Hmm.
All you can do
Hmm.
is say, they've planted 500 mangroves this week and we're supporting them. And that's real and it's
Hmm.
tangible and it's human. And those are the sustainability stories that can be brought and threaded through a business and into brands. And that's where word of mouth comes from. So the strategic opportunity is
Hmm.
not just getting ahead of incoming regulation, and it's not just being ready for from a compliance level, and it's not even just doing the right thing. It's becoming part of the industry as a force for good, and that all
Yeah.
starts with
Hmm.
embedding sustainability through businesses. So as
Yeah.
a product marketer, I kind of specialize in go to market and launching products. So helping our customers know how to train their sales teams and position this through their brands is a huge part of what we consider our value, um,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
leading towards our mission.
Yeah.
I
Maybe. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Christoph.
No, you're welcome. So that's actually, and I think that this was also what Alicia was saying. I think this will also help to restore trust in
Yeah.
companies. that they are being taken seriously, that people, whether they're clients, co-workers, employees, investors, shareholders, whatever,
Yeah.
that they see, hey, okay, that's not just some nice buzzwords on the homepage, some nice pictures of forests and trees and all of that, but actually something, hey, okay, wow. They're not talking the talk, they're also walking the walk,
Yeah.
across
Yeah.
the whole operations, whatever industry you're in. And I believe, Alicia, you're right with your path that you were just describing. Yeah.
And maybe Christoph, something that maybe linking the all of the amazing explanation that Alicia just shared to us, like embedding like climate positive solutions, in fact, in your own like positioning. I think that can be a sum up, even if Alicia would say it like much better than me for sure. But I think that's kind of the point when and we have really good examples of that from our customers, from our logistic customers that do it. And maybe to help visualize again, like this example, maybe let's talk about digital freight forwarding. Christoph, that's a lot of companies that are freight forwarders that help companies import and export. They have a platform, and that's the main tool that they use to communicate with their customers, and that's what Alicia was saying. So when we integrate with those companies, with those freight forwarders, what do we do? So we are helping them communicate to their clients, so to the real owners of the goods, to the importers, to the exporters, to the shippers. What's the link of a transport with the emission? So we help with the calculation. So we allow the final customer to understand what's one container from China to Rotterdam in emissions. So that's one thing. And maybe the second thing that I think it's really relevant, and it's linked to the embedding argument that Alicia was sharing, is we have customers that, in fact, when they integrated with Loon, they spread it towards their network and they shared and communicated precisely to their clients. From now on, we want to help the world reach net zero, right? We want to go towards that path. And in fact, from now on, we want you also to follow that path. So basically, they are adding like a offsetting project to all of the imports and exports. So that's, you think about it, that's a big change for companies in a sector that unfortunately is not that advanced in the climate journey, or at least not in a global scale, right? So this,
right. Yep.
Yeah, this is like to me that's very beautiful, and that's a way to differentiate from the competitors, of course. And we both know, Christoph, that freight forwarding is really competitive. So you can say we are green because we are allowing you, shipper, to have awareness of the emissions that you are impacting the world with your transports, and we are helping you compensate that with, for instance, a forestry project. So I think that's beautiful and it's amazing. And I have something to add on that, and maybe I was thinking with Alicia, we wanted to play a little game with you, Christoph, if that's okay. Maybe to build on this point.
Sure.
Do you like games?
I do what?
Do you like games?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, and
It's
I
also what
suppose
I'm
you like.
playing with my customers sometimes.
I suppose you really like winning also.
Yes, I do. Sure.
I could guess that. So, like maybe before I jump on the game, I just want to emphasize, basically, these companies that we work with, they are telling their customers, from now on, we will compensate your transports. But of course, the customer is the one that decides. Not right, Alicia? The customer always has the right, to say otherwise. So at the end, if you tell me no, in fact, no, I prefer to opt out, I don't want to compensate, we will do it. But you need to tell me that you don't want to compensate. So you see the kind of the logic behind. So I think that's the game that I wanted to play with you, Christoph. And let's see if you pass the test. Imagine that, I have a cup of coffee. I have it, and you want it. How much would you offer me for me to give you that cup of coffee?
Let's say €4. Depends on
Okay.
how desperately I want the coffee.
That's a good point. Let's say €4, okay, and you're not desperate. And now imagine that you have the coffee, and I want it, and you can give it to me because you. For how much would you give to me your coffee?
€5.
Okay, so you're giving more value to what you already have than to what you don't have. You see? So basically, if we psychologically analyze this, and this was a really good discussion that we had with an MIT professor, by the way, it's deep. It comes from MIT, from research, so it's just crazy. Like, you realize that when the final customer already has, they see that their supplier has embedded sustainability on the system, and they already offer to you this carbon offsetting possibility. To say no would be harder. You give more value to what you already have, to what you don't have, in a way. And if you look at the other way, like, just like a final point, sorry, if you look at the other way around, imagine that if you were a shipper and they tell you, if you want for this import you can offset, maybe there you have more boundaries, like maybe there you don't feel that you own sustainability, you don't feel that you can accept that overcost in a way, even if it's only $20, maybe you don't do it. But if it's already opt-in, that all of the psychology changes. So it's pretty amazing. Sorry, Alicia, you were going to say something?
No, I just love that example. I just was like, whoa, yeah.
So in essence, what you're looking for, Maria, what you were just describing. So in essence, you're also looking for a mindset shift, for a perception shift, so to speak,
Yeah.
because as you've been working in the industry,
Yeah.
I just use that example. Yeah, random client comes to me, hey, I need a quotation, full container from Shanghai to Rotterdam, for instance, right?
Yeah.
And I believe there are many that are like, you know what? Yeah, we just leave the opt-in thing out because I want to stick to my budget. Especially right now as freight rates are declining,
Yeah,
or
of course.
are on a rapid decline. They're like, okay, I want to make sure I keep my budget pretty tight and pretty low. That's nice.
Yeah.
And whereas you've been looking in, hey, look, if you book with us, boom, it's already net zero.
Right.
But you have to
Yeah.
tell us to opt out.
Yeah. And it's
like
hard to say no to sustainability. It's like really, like at the end, we all have emotions and we all have our own opinion of the subject. And like, think about it. Maybe you won't say no. I hope so.
Yeah, we had one customer, a logistics platform where, following that model of you must opt out, I think 70% of their shippers were participated in offsetting because it was available and easy and affordable in their platform. So we do see, like, we put a lot of focus in the logistics space, and we find that shippers do want to create sustainable logistics. So it's quite exciting. But one way to help our logistics customers realize some of that strategic value is by benchmarking perceptions. So don't again, going beyond the actual purchase of the carbon credits as success. And I like to encourage our customers to survey their customers and say, how sustainable do you perceive us? And then in 6 months, see if there's a behavior change or a perception change. And what are those benefits do for improving the overall brand and so on. So you can measure climate through a business lens and through customer focused metrics. So that's a big part of how we try to kind of take the mindset through to our customers as well.
I like that. I mean, it absolutely makes sense because at the end of the day, when we are just keep on walking the same old tracks, How do we expect
Yeah.
to get any different? And that's without any judgment. It's just, just thinking
Yeah,
out loud, so to speak. So
Yeah.
yeah,
we as a global society, this is not limited to certain country, certain continent. As a global society, we really need to um, step out the beaten path, so to speak. And
Mhm.
just wanted to add here real quick some nice comments also from the audience. We got Benita asking if I or we will be doing a sustainability stories series. That's actually a great idea, Benita. I gotta talk with Maria and with Alicia about that because that's really a good one, I think.
Yeah, we actually kind of do that. If you head over to the Loon blog, it's lune.co/blog. Our amazing climate comms expert, Tabitha, she writes deep dives into our projects. So you can learn about, I think, yep, she just published one recently about direct air capture, but that's my bias. We've got tons of them. And we're really trying to tell those stories about running tides, seaweed sequestration, tons of cool technologies. Um, that are available already on our blog, and we often try to interview those project developers directly, either the founders or people who are on the ground. Oh, perfect, thank you. Oh, sorry, loon.co/blog, but
yeah,
just note them. um, but yeah, so you can check out some of those stories, because that, like Christoph was saying, like, we need to break down misconceptions and assumptions about greenwashing, and show that there are incredible things happening around the world every day.
Absolutely. That's
Perfect.
that's that's a great. Oh yeah, there we go. Here now it's working.
Thanks.
Perfect. So everybody who's online who doesn't watch the video, it's www.lune.co/blog. And I also got a nice complimentary comment from Samir. Samir Khan
can
is writing
also
to add
focus
on to
on.
Christoph's ideas. We can also focus on
Nice.
implementing smart logistics. This means using technologies such as IoT devices, big data analytics to make logistics processes better and faster and reduce waste. That's absolutely right, Samir. Uh, the offsetting, in my opinion, is not an either or, but it's in fact something that complements
Yeah,
other vital developments across the whole supply chain, across all modes of transport, whether it's the data part. You might also check out the Joy Logistics episode based on the data for more
yeah,
information, and also things like collapsible containers, which would allow yeah, the
yeah. I
whole
think
earth to massively reduce CO2. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I mean, we are talking about quality and many initiatives and many topics, but maybe something that we have not really mentioned is, and it's linked to this smart logistics and this vision of how digital elements can help you like automate and be faster on the sustainability initiatives. I think maybe my point here is that the I'm talking maybe about what the world that Alicia and me know, like carbon offsetting and all of our carbon emission visibility. Like it's really, really like perfect to implement those initiatives. But if you can do it in a flexible, easy, and like let's say digital way, that's the best, because that's no brainer. Like it's just like that,
Correct.
and I think that helps again building on your question, Christoph, like or Alicia, like how can we make this go faster? How can we improve all of these objective? One way is also using the digital tools that we have, like APIs and others.
Right. Right. This has to happen, and also to get back on. I think Alicia mentioned that earlier. Just think of, you have what Loon is offering, the carbon offsetting portion. Then you add on your air freight, you add the SAF or the SAF, however you want to pronounce it, right, to reduce the
That's
amount of
yeah,
emissions. As a third one, because you also ship ocean freight, you use methanol, ammonia, whatever, also reduce it, trucking, EVs, or whatever it might be. And that's just fascinating. Now, unfortunately, we are coming close to the 90 minutes mark. Thank you, both of you, for taking your time, for sharing your amazing knowledge and experience, and thanks for being the guest on the show. And I'm sure there are many people in the audience, they're like, "Oh man, that's so interesting! I really want to implement this or learn more about the project." How can they get in touch with you?
Um, you you can find us on LinkedIn. You can just search our names, and we'd love to connect with you. And also just check out the Loon website, and we can contact you through there as well, which is lune.co. Anything else to add, Maria?
No, I think that's perfect.
Cool.
Thank you. And hopefully we will get a chance to speak to more people. And I would like to add also with you, Christoph, because we have really enjoyed. And
Yes. Thank you.
I wouldn't say no to a series of continuing podcasts with you.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Maybe we gotta dive into that a little bit more, what we can do. And appreciate the comment, and appreciate you taking your time being on the show and sharing your phenomenal ideas and projects. It's really what the industry is looking for. And also for the audience, go out, spread the word. It's important. It's vital.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate
see you
it.
soon. Thanks.
Talk to you soon. Take care.